We are going to be talking today about the unexpected and how we can use this in our stories. So before we start on this, I just want to mention why we're doing this. So you guys have been drafting, many of you are drafting longer works. And often when you get through the middle of your piece and you kind of get into this section of writing, you have planned forward, you know most of what's going to happen. You are kind of nearing the climax of your story, and you're feeling like, how do I just kind of keep going? And sometimes it can start to feel like a grind to be drafting at this point. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it feels exciting and magical. And if that's the case for you, just keep on writing. Don't do anything different. Just keep on going. But for some of us, we just need to add a little bit of spice, a little bit of flair, something new that kind of makes us excited and interested. Now, sometimes that is adding something into the story we're working on now. And sometimes that's just giving ourselves a moment to write something different. A couple weeks ago, I did a camp where we worked on picture books, and it was such a wonderful relief for me to step away from a big project I was working on and just play around with the picture book idea. And it wasn't that I was abandoning my story. It was just that I was giving myself a little bit of mental and creative breathing room so that when I went back to my story, I'd have a little bit more perspective and I'd be a little bit more excited. So I just want you to know that no matter where you are in your writing journey, sometimes just adding a little bit of the unexpected can be great. I want you to first think about a choice that your character would never make. And when I say your character, I was kind of thinking about your main character, but it's okay if you want to choose your antagonist. It's okay if you want to choose something outside of your story that you want to play with. Say your character is a rule follower. They always follow the rules. They would never, ever break the rules. They would never sneak out of their house late at night after dark, right? Never, ever, ever. And you might have a lot of things you can think of that they'd never do. So I want you to think of one that stands out to you. Now I want you to think about, what if they were forced to make that choice? So, we could think about Ron Weasley, for instance, who hates spiders. What if he went to the part of the zoo where it was just a spider display? What would force him to be there, and what would he have to do if he were there? So as you think about your character, think about what could force your character to be there. And you might have a couple ideas, so choose the one that seems most interesting to you. And then I want you just to think about the scene. So you've thought about what it is. So we talked earlier about somebody sneaking out. So maybe your character would never, ever, ever sneak out. But what would force them to do that? Well, the most important thing to them might be their puppy. And if their puppy got out late at night and their parents said, you need to wait until the morning to go look for your puppy, and they said, no, I absolutely can't do that. And so maybe that would be the reason that they would sneak out. And what would happen next? And what's a good thing to do when you're putting a situation in place like this is you don't want it to just flow easily for them. So there has to be something major at stake here. And ideally, you'll notice something interesting about your character from this. You'll notice, first of all, what they would never want to do. And you'll also notice what their values are. Why would they break their own personal rule? What's important enough to them that they would break it? And then once they're in that situation, what would they do next, and how would they handle the situation? Would they continue to be careful? Would they just throw all caution to the wind? How would it go?